Welcome to Mind Love, episode 14. Today is all about flexing your female.
Studies show in psychology that men, the more attractive and the taller they get, there's a correlation with being more and more successful. But for women, it's more of like a bell curve. You don't want to be unattractive and you don't want to be super attractive. And so women are actually downplaying or like suppressing their looks in order to get ahead.
Turn up your frequency with Mind Love. Bite-sized brain hacks for seekers, dreamers, and doers. It's time to give your mind a little love with your host, Melissa Monti.
Hello, friends. Any of you out there who have tried to pave the road of success probably realize how huge of a factor your mindset really is. We all have so many self-limiting beliefs just punching us in the face over and over again, almost every day. But then comes the gender bias. As a woman, it can feel like your boss, your coworkers, life is punching you in the face. Whether we personally accept it or not, the reality is the gender bias is real. It's getting better, but it's there. Today we're talking to Anna Wood. She's the founder and CEO of Brains Over Blonde, a feminist lifestyle platform for women who refuse to choose between femininity and success. To add to her badassery, she's a serial entrepreneur, she's a Google alumni, and she got her MBA from Stanford. And now, as a self-described female empoweress, she helps other women carve out amazing careers and cultivate fearless lives. While this episode is dedicated to all the women out there, it's not just for the women. It's also for any man who loves a woman, employs a woman, works with a woman, or just wants to be a little more woke on these issues. So today, 3 key things you will learn are how gender biases affect our mindsets, how we women still hold each other back, and how to find the courage to go for your dreams and flex your female. So let's get to it and welcome Anna to the show. Your signature hashtag for Brains Over Blonde is Flex Your Female. What does that mean to you, and what message do you hope that hashtag spreads?
Yeah, well, I really hope it spreads positivity and makes women really proud to be a woman. Everything that's going on in the political climate these days, it can be exhausting and it can be a little discouraging, I think, at times. And I really wanted to put a positive hashtag out there. And the whole idea behind Flex Your Female, I mean, really, it's kind of like, I am woman, hear me roar. That's what Flex Your Female is all about. But there is a second layer, a deeper meaning to it as well. And that really comes from my time at Google. One of my side projects was to facilitate the unconscious bias course, which is the diversity training at Google. And we found through studying thousands of different Googlers that women are less likely to make their accomplishments known. They're less likely to tell their manager all the great things that they're up to in one-on-one meetings. And they're less likely to put themselves up for promotion or to apply to new jobs. You know, men will apply to jobs typically when they don't meet all the qualifications, but women wait until they meet all the qualifications and more. Same with promotions. Women tend to want to promote themselves about 6 months after they're really qualified. And so the whole idea behind Flex Your Female is it kind of gives you an opportunity or a pass to humble brag a little bit. If you got that promotion or if you did something really awesome, it's okay to make that accomplishment known. You know, we're competing with people that are certainly doing that. And so I want to give women the opportunity to practice, to show off all the great things that they're doing.
If you've never been a female in the corporate world, some of these things might sound a little bit foreign to you, but it's hard to fathom just how bad it can be until you've lived it. For example, being called aggressive when really you're just speaking your mind like everybody else, or being called hysterical just because you disagree with somebody. And here's a real example from my life. In a former job, I actually had the CEO of the company ride my ass for almost everything that I said. And one time in particular, he actually said that I should have used a smiley emoji in an email to investors. I could never have imagined him telling a man that he should have added an emoji at the end of his email. A woman in the corporate world isn't always allowed to say, I disagree with that, here's another idea, or research shows that this fares better than that. Instead, we're supposed to say, I'm sure you've already thought about this before, but maybe have you considered this? Because I heard somewhere by a little birdie that it probably has this, but I don't really know.
And that's what I want women to do, just straight out say, if you have an opinion, you don't need to say this is what you think. You don't need to say this is my opinion. It might be wrong, but just say it. The smiley face thing just makes me laugh because I doubt he would ever say that to a man. And actually, one of the studies we did at Google that was really interesting, I thought, was to basically have like a staged actor come up to the copy machine when people are making copies and say, do you mind if I cut in line? I'm in a rush. And then they would rate the person afterwards. And they found that women would not really get any sort of bonus or bump if they let someone cut them in line, but they would get a huge penalty if they said no in terms of likability. But for men, it was the complete opposite. They didn't get any sort of penalty for saying no, but if they did do something nice and let someone cut ahead of them, they got actually a big bump in likability. And it's just so interesting how those standards permeate. Women are expected to be nice, expected to, put smiley faces in their emails.
Yeah, let's all imagine for a second Elon Musk responding to a male's email with, "Can you please add a winky face next time? This was highly inappropriate." It is comforting to know that a company as large scale as Google are making the efforts to at least bring awareness to some of these gender biases. But despite that awareness, there's usually quite a lot to fix, especially in a company that size. Were there any gender biases that you experienced that may have not been as obvious?
There are so many things. For most of my time at Google, I was in a predominantly male field or team. I started out working for Android with mostly engineers, not a lot of women in our building at all. And we actually called it Mandroid, or when I say we, they called it Mandroid. And it was kind of this cutesy name, I guess. But just by nature of that name, you don't really feel included. There are video games all over the place. Just things that aren't necessarily welcoming or enticing to women that might be interested in working there. And when I moved into sales, I was a top performer on my sales team, and we would work really hard. We had team quotas, and when some of us would win, we would all win. We would celebrate each other's successes. But I vividly remember my manager congratulating me in a team meeting for my performance. And right as we were all leaving, the guys on my team said, well, maybe if I looked like Anna, I'd perform like her too. And everyone kind of laughed, including my manager, including me, because I didn't know what else to do. But I felt incredibly depressed afterwards because what should have been this really exciting celebratory moment just turned into something that took all my power away, discredited my performance, and attributed it to something other than my skills and how hard I had worked. So just little comments like that would add up over time, and yeah, certainly would get to me. And I think that's something that men aren't trying to be discriminatory. They're trying to be funny, even may have even thought that was a compliment. But I want to bring awareness to some of the things, some of the dialogue that's out there that's actually bringing women down.
So why did you end up leaving Google? Was it these gender biases, or was there some other catalyst?
Yeah, good question. Everything's clearer in retrospect. So now I can paint this picture of why it all made sense. It didn't always make sense along the way, but I have always been drawn to entrepreneurship. I always wanted to start my own company. And as I got older and older, I kind of thought that would be less likely as I started to think about, settling down and having a family, and all of these things as the years go by just seem harder and harder to do. But I had always been really passionate about women and gender diversity, all types of diversity. I wrote my thesis in college on diversity in the workplace. And when I was at Google, I also did some health and wellness coaching on the side. So I actually, when I went to business school, I thought that I might start a company around body image, female empowerment through loving yourself, basically. And I didn't know exactly what that would be. And I did my MBA internship at The League, which is a dating app that empowers women. And I started this kind of equal partnerships blog briefly that I didn't think anyone would see, but it actually ended up being pretty popular. And I thought maybe this is the way. Maybe this is actually the best way to empower women and to get my message out, is not through these formalized diversity programs, but actually through the way that young women are absorbing information these days, which is through blogs and video and social media, content creation, basically. And that's what I really love to do. And once that clicked, there was no stopping me. I mean, I don't think I slept for like a week. I just created this business plan for Brains Over Blonde and just worked incessantly really throughout the end of my last quarter at Stanford and then over the summer until I was ready to launch Brains Over Blonde. And that's what I always tell people. I think if you are interested in starting your own company, if you're interested in, being an entrepreneur, don't force it. Don't try to come up with an idea so that you can go do it. I don't think that really is going to give you the fulfillment that you're looking for, especially if you're a passion-driven person like I am. I would keep doing what you're doing, keep learning as much as possible, absorbing as much as you can, so that when you do have that idea that just drives you to the point where you can't do anything else, you'll be ready to go and you can go full force into that idea.
You make a great point about forcing your ideas. That reminds me of my former self. I used to compare myself to Tom Haverson from Parks and Rec, but after the whole Aziz Ansari thing, it's not a comparison I'm comfortable with anymore. But I did. I went from one idea to the next. I had a travel blog. I even had an affiliate website at one point. But for one reason or another, these ideas just didn't stick with me. The passion fizzled out after just a few months. And I started to worry that I'd never be able to complete anything, that maybe I was too ADD or that this entrepreneur thing wasn't right for me. But I finally decided to go through and do the work to find out what my purpose was. If anyone out there can relate to this, I highly recommend Pat Flynn's Will It Fly book, which helps you validate your ideas and even find your purpose. One of the exercises in that book had me write a letter to people that are close to me. So I wrote to 11 different people, including ex-coworkers, an old roommate, friends, my mom, and I asked them what my superpower was. And when I did that, I was able to see myself a little bit more from an objective point of view. And within a day, I had the idea for this podcast. And ever since, I feel like I'm on fire. But the trick is, you have to lay out your future. What does your perfect future look like? And then find a plan that works inside of that. For example, with the travel blog, I was only looking at a really small aspect of what that would entail. I thought to myself, who wouldn't want to fly around and stay in luxurious places for free and visit hundreds of countries in their lifetime? But it wasn't long until I realized I don't like writing about travel. I don't really want to write much at all. And it wasn't what gives me energy when I talk about it. Mindset, mindfulness, and becoming a better human, now that gets me fired up. And being able to feed my desire of lifelong learning by having inspiring guests on my show who can teach me something every single week, that sounds perfect. And now, I can't wait to get up in the morning, even to do the mundane tasks around building this podcast. And, I better love it because I'm going to be doing it for free for quite some time before something like this can start making any money.
Entrepreneurship, it's all in. It never sleeps. There's not a day really that I don't work, in at least in some capacity. And so it has to be the idea that you can marry yourself to and know that you probably won't find success for a while. You're going to be grinding. And so you can't force the idea. It really has to be something that you enjoy doing even before you find that success.
Anna, you mentioned your first idea was to promote a healthier body image. Why was that important to you?
Oh, well, I I've struggled with body image issues for most of my life. I got boobs, I think, in second grade. I was about 7 years old because I was young for my grade. And I really had no idea what was happening to my body. And I was a tomboy. I was obsessed with sports. I wanted to be in the NBA, not the WNBA. I refused to wear a bra. And so I was just uncomfortable all the time. And it didn't stop me from playing sports. So you can imagine how that goes. Not cute or comfortable. And I had double D's by the time I was in sixth grade. And it was really humiliating for me because it just became what I was known for. You can imagine being that one girl with the huge boobs, super young. I remember being in eighth grade and two of my best friends were in the bathroom and they didn't know I was in there. And I heard them call me Uniboob. And it was because I would wear like 3 sports bras to strap down my boobs to make them go away. And hearing my friends like gossiping me about that was so hurtful. And then going into high school, a fine young gentleman discovered that if you move every letter of my name, Anna, to the next letter in the alphabet, it spells boob. And so then that was my new nickname. And it really got to me. I mean, I was like a circus freak with just enormous boobs. Everyone thought that they could touch them, talk about them just because they were so big and obvious, I guess. And so I really just hated the body I was in. I gained weight. I didn't take care of myself. I stopped playing sports when I had always been this super, super active person that loved sports. And I ended up getting really overweight and just really losing my mojo, I guess, in a lot of ways. And when I was 18, I was a sophomore in college, I decided to get a breast reduction, which is one of the best decisions I've ever made for many reasons. And if you want to read more about it, I talk about it a lot on Brains Over Blonde. But it was the first time I really felt in control of my body. Like I was making a decision that was going to take back my control in a way. And ever since then, it's been so much easier to work out. Clothes fit better. I stand up taller. I'm more confident. I've lost weight. All of these things that have just made me really love my body. I'm so appreciative and thankful for all of the things that my body can do. I am a total naked person. All of my friends know me for just being naked all the time. And it's not because my body is perfect. I have some loose skin from losing weight. I have scars from my breast reduction. It's anything but perfect, but I love my body. I love myself, and it's really changed my life. And that's how I started getting into the health and wellness coaching at Google and found that incredibly fulfilling to really see firsthand people changing their lives and finding success in all of these different areas of their life once they learn to take control over their bodies.
That's a great reminder that body image disorders aren't just for people who are overweight. They can stem from so many different things. I think a lot of us are just trying to fit this universal standard of beauty that just doesn't exist, which means that 99% of us are going to be unhappy with the way that we look. And that's sad, because we're all beautiful. Being unique is being beautiful. But because of the way our brains develop, as children, one little thing can trigger us for a lifetime. In middle school, my best friend was told that she had DSLs, which stands for earmuffs, dick-sucking lips. Come on, kids. So, obviously, she was self-conscious about her lips for a really long time. And I can tell you that most people would die to have her lips. They're amazing.
It's just a good reminder. You never know what other people are going through or how your words might hurt. With the DSL thing, it's like, I can relate to that too, because you have big boobs, you have big lips. People might call you a slut, and that's totally not okay. And it might even come from jealousy, or it might come from something internally with them, but it can really hurt the other person. And there are a lot of things besides just being overweight that happen behind the scenes in people's minds, like anxiety, depression, bulimia, that you might not know that someone is going through. And so it's just a good reminder to be conscious of that and really respectful of other people.
It's also important to remember that people's comments about you are never really about you. They're about them, their insecurities, their pain points, their limiting beliefs. And those little jabs people like to throw out to bring others down, usually work as excuses to enable their own self-limiting behavior. Going back to that comment by that disgruntled coworker that said, well, maybe if I was pretty, I'd be successful too. I actually have a lot of feelings about that comment. Going into the corporate world, if I'm being perfectly honest with myself, I did feel a need to present myself in a certain way and look attractive. Whether it was to get noticed by bosses, potential clients, all of the above. But then there came a time when I thought, I'm serious about this, and I didn't feel like I was being taken seriously because of the way I looked. So I felt the need to almost hide my femininity by slicking my hair back in a ponytail, wearing less makeup, avoiding jewelry, and even wearing masculine clothing, just to be taken seriously in my job.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you brought this up. It's so true. I feel like women a lot of times really can't win in this area. You know, if you don't do your hair and makeup for work, people critique you and say you're not put together. But if you do your hair and makeup, then you're high maintenance. It's kind of like a bell curve. It's shown in studies show in psychology that men, the more attractive and the taller they get, there's a correlation with being more and more successful. But for women, it's more of like a bell curve. You don't want to be unattractive and you don't want to be super attractive. And so women are actually downplaying or like suppressing their looks in order to get ahead. And even when I was in business school, we would get the advice, like when you go to interviews, put your hair back, wear glasses, don't wear bright colors, don't wear too many accessories. And all of this advice is good intentioned and there's real data behind it. But on the other hand, it's what message is that sending? It's sending a message that women can't come as themselves to work and they have to suppress certain parts of themselves in order to be accepted and to be successful.
Hold that thought real quick. The Mind Love podcast is supported by CastBox, the fastest growing, highest rated podcast app on iOS and Android. CastBox has over 50 million free episodes that more than 13 million users download and listen to wherever, whenever. CastBox has also pioneered a brand new way to search. All you have to do is enter a keyword or phrase, and CastBox will search all show titles and transcripts of every single episode to deliver exactly what you're looking for. So head over to your app store, download CastBox, and try it for yourself today. What other traits have you found that women feel the need to suppress other than their physical looks just to get ahead in the workplace?
Well, I think a big one is emotions and empathy. People can be very critical if you bring emotions to work. And I believe that as women who are characteristically often more empathetic, more emotional, that's actually one of our superpowers. And empathy can make you one of the best leaders around and definitely one of the best managers. It's just that a lot of leaders are male. So that's kind of what we know. That's the example that we see in the media. It's the example we see at work. And so that's kind of what we're used to. And it's also what's typically studied, just because there's more of that. And often it's men doing the studies too. And so they're studying male leadership qualities and promoting things like being direct or being unemotional, when yes, that can work and that works for some leaders, but that may not be your leadership style. And there's nothing wrong with that. You could be a leader that leads with emotion, that leads with empathy, and you can be a really fantastic leader that way. People just don't talk about it as much.
I'm very passionate about this topic because it's part of the reason that I decided to branch out and start to build my own life with this podcast and my vision for its future. Get excited for that, guys. But I wasn't happy in my last job. We just had very different leadership styles, and because I'm so focused on mindset, I knew that these little things like calling me immediately after I send an email and constantly lecturing me on my tone, which I don't find any different from my male colleagues. These things aren't just little things. They have lasting effects on your frame of mind and what you believe is possible in your life. And those aren't sacrifices that I am willing to make. And I don't think anybody should. Which also reminds me that it's so important to be very specific with your vision for the future. Because all these things were things that I thought that I wanted. especially the status of a vice president position and the flexibility to work remotely most of the time. But on the flip side, I was still under the thumb of mostly men, and the only person above me in the company had a very different leadership style than I felt like I could even get behind and support. So I started to take a step back and realize, yeah, on one hand, I am proud that I worked myself up as a woman to such a high position in a company of mostly men. But on the other hand, why are there not more women in this company? And the women that were hired for a brief time, there was almost a sense of competition. While I'd love to say that my place of business was the only one with female cattiness, that's just not the truth. And there are some interesting theories behind it. Studies are chalking this up to internalizing the patriarchy. Here's a great quote from Psychology Today. As women come to consider being prized by men their ultimate source of strength, worth, achievement, and identity, they are compelled to battle other women for the prize. In short, when our value is tied to the people who can impregnate us, we turn on each other.
Yeah, there's definitely a reputation for that women are catty, women don't help each other in the workplace. And I think it's true to some extent. And I don't think it's entirely women's fault. I think we are bred to believe, the media shows us, and we've seen firsthand from our personal experiences that often there is one woman on the team. There's one female VC or whatever it is at the firm. And so we are all vying for that one spot, and it forces us to be competitive with one another. And instead, what we really need to be doing is lifting each other up. Female leaders bring up more female leaders. We can all help each other. And really, the more female leaders we have up there, the more it will become the norm, and the more people will learn to embrace and really want to embody these characteristically female qualities that make great leaders, because we'll see it more. We're used to it in society. And right now we're not. And just as humans, we don't like change, and we like what's safe and what we know.
It's true. And it's actually the basis of all marketing. It's why Coca-Cola would be willing to spend millions of dollars to make sure that Jennifer Lawrence has a can in her hand in the next Hunger Games. I sometimes struggle between fighting through with the way things are and just saying screw it because it's not how things should be. The book Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg is actually a good example because she outlines what it takes for women to be successful in the corporate world. And a lot of that includes, unfortunately, women working harder to get there. Some people have criticized the book because it's not fair and it's not how things should be. What are your thoughts on the mindset that it takes for women to be successful in the corporate world?
Well, I love Lean In. I'm a huge Sheryl Sandberg fan. One thing that's really cool is you can see how quickly we're moving even in the last year, because I agree Lean In might already be a little bit outdated, but it's not wrong. Pretty much everything she talks about in there is data-driven. And it may not be fair, but a lot of things in life aren't fair. A lot of different groups have privileges over others. That's just kind of how the world works, and denying it isn't going to change anything. We may have to work harder in the short term. We might have to get louder in the short term, but in the long term, hopefully we can all have equality.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's true. Just because Sheryl Sandberg is highlighting specific things doesn't mean that she's making them unfair. She's saying that we can not only survive in this patriarchal corporate world, but we can thrive in it. It's going to take a little bit longer, but if we put in the hard work, maybe generations to come won't have to work quite as hard. And in the interim, we are free, thankfully, to start our own ventures. I want to ask you about your experience leaving the corporate world and starting your own business. What was your mindset like at that time? Were there fears, or did you just dive right into it?
Both. I mean, it was all encompassing. Like I was saying before, I almost couldn't stop. I was so driven and so passionate about what I was doing. And so I didn't have a choice. And in some ways you could argue it wasn't the smartest decision. There are a lot of jobs I could have taken out of business school that would have been really amazing, secure, high paying, had an easier to envision future and progression in my career. And in fact, when I decided what I was doing and I told friends, mentors, my parents, not everyone thought it was a good idea. A lot of people didn't think it was a good idea. And it certainly wasn't the safe plan. And it's certainly not the path that many people, in fact, I don't think I know anyone from business school that's really taken this path. That was okay with me because I am such a passion-driven person, and I know that I want to live my happiest, most fulfilled, passionate life. And so I almost didn't have a choice. But what is it like? It's the best and most exhausting, exciting, confusing thing ever. You know, when you're working for a company like Google, you know what you have to do to succeed. And there's kind of like a finite number of tasks you have. You're measured against certain metrics that have basically been placed on you, and you're tracking yourself against those things. When you're an entrepreneur, it's all very arbitrary. You're setting goals, you're making decisions. I'm self-funding, so it's my own money. Every dime I spend, I'm like, counting my pennies and trying to figure out if it's going to be worth it. And you might have a plan for your day, but then your website crashes. This has happened to me, and you're just derailed for the entire 2 days. I don't have like a website developer, so I'm doing that all on my own. And I really had to self-teach on so many different things in order to get up and running. But every day is new, every day is different, and things are moving so quickly. And that's really how I like it. So I've never felt more fulfilled. I've never felt more excited to get up in the morning and do work ever, not even close. So it's been amazing.
Yeah, the entrepreneur journey is crazy, right? I go from on a high to suddenly starkly terrified quite often. I've mentioned this before. I'll suddenly wake up and think, oh my gosh, did I share too much in the last episode? What am I even doing? Am I ruining my life right now? And next thing you know, I'm envisioning the entire world repeating these things back to me that really just came from the years of negative self-talk or my deepest fears. In 10 seconds or less, I went from being so confident in what I'm doing to an article in the New York Times talking about how terrible my podcast is. I'm broke, I have to sell all my stuff, and then I'm homeless. It's usually about the time that I'm picturing cleaning myself up off the streets that I have to talk myself down and realize everything's going to be okay and this journey's a roller coaster.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up because you and I are similar in that way, which is that we kind of bare our soul. We lay it all out there, and the lines between business and personal are much more blurred than they ever have been before. And it is definitely scary. I mean, I've gotten all sorts of criticism I've definitely gotten a thicker skin. I'll tell you that. I used to be the type of person, I still am at heart, the type of person that wants everyone to like them. And I've had to realize not everyone's going to like me, and that's okay. It's much better and much more important for me to be true to myself and stay true to my mission and message and my voice and beliefs than it is for everyone to like me. But it can be hard. You do have those panics where you worry if you made a mistake, especially when it comes to sharing your personal life.
Your Twitter bio says, not bossy, not a girl boss, just a boss. That resonated with me because, first of all, it's that unfortunate kind of funny that women even need to call out that they're not bossy just because they are, in fact, a boss. But also, it not only downplays the accomplishment, but it puts us in a box. Or should I say, girl box. But why is that differentiation important to you?
So, well, first of all, I'll just say I love Girl Boss. I think they're a great media platform, but I don't like the name. I think that girl is a qualifier that we put on a lot of different words to basically make us less threatening as bosses. And we're certainly not girls. If you're over 18, you're a woman and you're just a boss. Men don't call themselves man bosses or boy bosses.
Hold up, boy boss? That's gold. Can't imagine that term makes anybody feel too masculine.
We really don't need that qualifier there. And it's been shown that language really affects how we process the world. And so you even look at words like actress versus actor. Actress kind of has that daintified suffix to it when it's not really needed, but it sort of makes us picture male and female actors differently. And girl boss is kind of a more extreme version of that. And so I just want us to be careful with the way we use our language, because it does affect the way we think and just societal structures in general. And yeah, the bossy part, if you haven't YouTube, there's some great videos out there of men and women doing the exact same thing. And, the woman gets called bossy, but the man gets called a leader or whatever it is. And so I just wanted to call that out a little bit.
That's so important, because the words we use do affect how our brain works. And even if we're aware of it, that doesn't mean that it's going to stop our brain from internalizing these concepts, such as, this is the women's side of things, but this is the real side. Here's the WNBA, but here's just the NBA. So it takes work. In an unfair world, we have to be more proactive about what we're feeding to our brains. The good news is, this is why affirmations are so powerful. It might seem silly, it might seem fake at first, but over time, our brains internalize the words and the meaning and the concepts. Thanks to that good old gender bias, prevalent in so many things, just like Sheryl Sandberg says, women, we might have a little extra work to do when it comes to the business world. What advice do you have for women who are thinking about starting their own businesses, whether they're straight out of college or considering taking the plunge and leaving their corporate jobs?
Well, it's different for everyone. And like I said before, starting your own company is like marrying someone. You really want to be married to the idea, married to the mission, because not every day is going to be easy. Some days are going to be really, really hard, really lonely, and scary even. And so it needs to be something you're so passionate about that it will take you through those hard days. You want to wait for the right idea, the right moment. That's the most important thing. But I do think there can be kind of a turning point in your career that might be the right time. For me, for some people, they're ready to start their own company right out of college. For me, I'm so glad that I worked at Google for 4 years. I learned so much there. And, 2 years of business school, I really feel like I have a foundation that makes me more successful as an entrepreneur. So even if you know for a fact that you're the entrepreneurial type, you want to start your own company, it doesn't mean you have to do it right away. And you just take whatever you're doing and mine it for all the learning that's there, and take those learnings to when you're ready for entrepreneurship.
What additional challenges might women have to face that men wouldn't?
Fundraising is a big thing. There are lots of statistics out there. Women only get a tiny percentage of all of the fundraising dollars that are out there. And that's for a number of reasons. One, men get a lot of bumps in their perception just for being men. They're more direct. They're more likely to highlight their accomplishments. That's why we have to flex our female. But also because the VC, the venture capitalist industry, is so male dominated, a lot of times men don't understand these female driven companies. And, there are lots of good examples of this. Spanx is a really great one, obviously a massive company now, but she was turned down many, many times. Bethany Frankel from Skinny Girl is the same way. And so women do have a disadvantage there. The good news is there's a big trend in VCs are paying more attention to this bias, investing more women. And there are even some VCs out there that are specifically looking to invest in women. The Helm is one of them. What are some others? Maven Ventures, I believe. So they're out there, but it's definitely a harder road, I think, when it comes to fundraising.
I just started watching Shark Tank. I know I'm a little late, but I wanted to become more familiar with the whole process of getting investors. And I've noticed in the last few episodes, Mr. Wonderful has said something along the lines of, you know how much I like to invest in women, and has been really playing up the idea of investing in women. It sounds small, but just like we were talking about before, how the more we're exposed to something, the more comfortable we become with it. And not just individually, as an entire culture. So where do you see Brains Over Blonde going, and what do you plan to do personally to help fight these gender biases?
Ultimately, I want to reach as many women as possible through my content. And so right now I do videos, blogs, posts across social media, but in the next year, I want to start my own podcast and eventually be on TV as well. I want to go one-to-many. I'm working on my courses, webinars, that sort of thing. Whereas right now, I'm doing a lot of personal one-on-one coaching, which I absolutely love doing, but it's not scalable for the size business that I want to have. So I need to start moving from that one-on-one relationship to more of a one-to-many. And in terms of what I'm going to do, I'm trying to lead by example and also to be a curator and a source for information, the go-to person for women that want to embrace all parts of themselves, all parts of their femininity, whatever that means to them, and be a successful, badass boss.
Damn straight. Do you have any last words of wisdom for women out there trying to climb the ladder of success?
One thing that I didn't mention when it comes to entrepreneurship that I think is an important message is that often everyone, but women especially, can be so hard on themselves and be such perfectionists that it actually stops us from going for our goals. So one thing I always like to say is don't let perfection be the enemy of good enough, because if you just get started, you're going to learn so much. I could have waited another year before I launched Brains Over Blonde or more. It's never really going to be 100% perfect or 100% ready, but your learning curve will get so much steeper when you just begin. And so if you have an idea, if there's something that you're passionate about, don't just keep putting it off because it's not the perfect time or you're not perfectly ready. Just get out there and do it.
Okay, ladies, who's ready to take on the world? And men, who's ready to hold our purses? Just kidding. To find out more about Anna, head over to brainsoverblonde.com or go to the show notes at mindlove.com/014. Her website is full of great content from everything from negotiating your salary to being a better listener and even some tips for tax season. If you loved this episode, please subscribe and leave a review if you can. And if you're listening on CastBox, add a few likes and comments. It helps tip the algorithm a little bit so I can reach more people and bring on more amazing guests like Anna. Also, I'm launching something really exciting called the Morning Mind Love. The Morning Mind Love will send you a short and sweet message to help bring out your higher self and start your day with a great mindset. You'll also get 2 free bonuses just for signing up. Your first bonus is a free Power Planner printable, which is the same method I use to keep me on track with my goals, including the goal of launching this podcast. And your second bonus is a free audio affirmation meditation with over 200 powerful affirmations to start making those small changes to your subconscious mind. It's also set to beautiful soundscapes at the miracle tone at 432 hertz. If you know anything about the solfeggio scale, you'll know how powerful this is. And if you don't, go back and listen to episode 5. I love you all. Thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into Your Higher Frequency with Mind Love. Head to mindlove.com for a free gift to keep your vibes up until next week.